Hi, and welcome to the third episode of SENDHelp. And as we said before, it's a platform where we're going to talk about ADHD, ASD, neurodiversity, and it's a safe space where we can share our stories, our experience, and hopefully let people know that they're not alone. So today we've got me, Sharon, and we've got Nate. And we've also got Jodie with us today. And Jodie is a counsellor and she also has a diagnosis of ADHD. So welcome, Jodie.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. So what we thought would be great, because I know that you had a late diagnosis. So would you just like to tell us a little bit about that, please?
Yeah, of course. So I've been a therapist for 11 years. I qualified 11 years ago, and of course I didn't know I had ADHD back then. I predominantly work in private practice now in Kent. I'm also a clinical supervisor and a trainer. And I got my diagnosis March this year, and obviously I was having kind of an idea that I might have ADHD way before that. I grappled with that for a little while. Haven't I? Have I? Like, lots of people over the years have mentioned it to me. Um, but yeah, I didn't see it. I didn't see it. And if I'm being really honest, I think it was, she's gone. Is that okay? If I'm being really honest, I think where my hormones are changing, I'm nearly 44. Um, it emphasised the ADHD traits, so I did actually see them and feel them much more. So I decided, I'm going to go for it, and I was so nervous, so nervous. My one of my children is diagnosed ADHD and ASD. And a few of my children show traits and symptoms actually. So I thought I'm going to go for it and see what happens. And I went through the right to choose with clinical partners. The process was really quick, to be honest, considering the wait times on the NHS, it's years. So I came across the right to choose and I went down that path. And from start to finish, it was 5 months. And although that isn't very long, it felt a lot longer. Felt like forever. And the assessment was quite difficult, very thorough. We went through all childhood stuff and how I struggle now with certain things. Had the assessment, then I had to wait a week and a half to get the results. That was like the longest week and a half.
Mm.
It was kind of wow. Had the phone call. It was over Zoom. Which I actually recorded and I did put it on my platform because I wanted to kind of put that awareness out there. And also as an ADHD, I don't always take everything in and I wanted to kind of listen to it back just so that I didn't miss anything. So I got the diagnosis and I then was on a bit of a journey with that for quite a while, a few months, just processing that.
Mm.
And I went through an array of emotions, some relief, some anger, resentment, particularly from my childhood. And I had a fairly good childhood in a sense. Secondary school was probably the most challenging. I was pretty much written off, to be honest.
Mm.
So, and there were some harsh things said to me when I was a teenager. So there was some resentment around that. A bit of grief as well. Like, what would my life been like had I had a diagnosis much earlier? How different would my schooling have been? But to be honest, back then there wasn't a lot of support for it anyway.
No.
Kind of got my head around that a bit. What would it's very different to now, and even now it could be better. What would they have done anyway? Would it have been that different? I don't think so, really. So I really kind of went around with those feelings and emotions for a while. Told the children. Again, I recorded that actually when we was in the car, and I put that on my platform.
I've
I
seen
saw
that,
that one. I
Jodie.
saw that one. Yeah.
Yeah, my son's reaction, I was not expecting that, and it's like, whoa, that was. I was pleased for him because although my other children do show traits and symptoms of neurodiversities, he's the only one that's diagnosed, and now me. And it did give him some comfort, and I think you can see that quite clearly in the video, that he got some comfort from that. And I went through it for a few months, and then after that I just thought, you know what, it is what it is. It's answered a lot of questions for me. It's really helped my son, because we can be ADHD together. I just thought to myself, I've got a lot of experience as a therapist, a lot of experience. And, and before I got the diagnosis, I was seeing clients that were neurodiverse. And I just thought, you know what, I can use this to help others more so. And that's when I changed my sort of stance on TikTok. So before I was just Jodie therapist, now it's Jodie ADHD therapist, and kind of put that awareness out there. And, when I'm working with people that are ADHD, I will tell them that I've got ADHD. And I think that is really, really important, because it's, as much as you can read about ADHD and learn about ADHD, unless you have it, very, very difficult to understand. And I think that's quite a problem when people seek therapy that have ADHD. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying they wouldn't get anything from seeing a neurotypical therapist, but there is a little bit of a barrier in the sense of the understanding, forgetting things, not being organised and consumed with thoughts. Like, unless you are in that on a constant, it's very difficult to understand, particularly with the constant thoughts overlapping, the overwhelm that can come with that. Unless you really experience that, it's very, very difficult to understand. So I've managed to use my diagnosis to better inform me about neurodiversities, to be able to use that and let clients know that are neurodiverse. I am too, and it definitely has made a difference.
Yeah. Have you had anyone be like, fuck that, and walk out?
Not yet. Not yet. But I would only, as a therapist, we have to be extremely boundaried in what we share personally. So, in our training, we're taught very strongly that we only share something about us if it's in the best interest of the client. So, with an ADHD client, I do feel it's in the best interest for the client that I tell them that I'm also ADHD. But if I was working with a client that was neurotypical, there isn't, what would be the point in telling
it's not
them?
A benefit, is it, for the client, like you say?
No.
Yeah.
So if somebody with ADHD got up and was like, see you later, I'd be quite surprised. So no, I haven't had that.
Who do you prefer? Neurodiverse people or not? Which one do you prefer?
That's a really tough one to call, actually. I don't think I have a preference, but
very diplomatic. Very good.
I work with young people, so I work with kids from the age of 11. And I have young people coming to me with ADHD that are, constantly getting in trouble at school, and all the classic stuff that often comes with ADHD. And when I tell them that I've got ADHD, that it's a whole different dynamic. And their faces, they're like, oh, have you? Yeah. So I get where you're coming from. I get the school thing. I completely hear you. And I mean, I love working with the young people, particularly the neurodiverse young people, because schooling is so difficult, and always being told you're doing this wrong, and and to have an adult to say, I get you, I get it, I think
it's strong, isn't it? That's really strong.
Absolutely.
it's good because when I remember when I got diagnosed at 11, I didn't meet anyone else with ADHD till way past I was 18. And for that, and if I, as you said that, I was thinking if I saw one of my doctors said to me at the time they got ADHD, it would have changed everything. Like
Yeah.
in that sense of you go for it alone. If you know someone already's got it, or the person you're talking to with for the advice has got it, you'll just be looking up to them in a different kind of light. Yeah, it's good that you can do that.
Absolutely. And just kind of being able to kind of share that you're going to be all right.
Yeah.
You
And
know, look at me.
yeah,
I've got a successful business, and I'm doing all right, and so it's kind of like a bit of a, I wouldn't say a role model is probably not the right word, but just kind of some hope that even if your schooling isn't going okay, it doesn't mean that's it for you. And often in secondary schools especially, and I hear this all the time with young people, they genuinely believe that if they don't get certain grades, their life is over.
Oh, it's the pressure, isn't it? Yeah.
Such a massive, massive pressure. And when you've got ADHD and you're struggling to focus, you're perhaps not doing so well in school, the self-esteem and the self-worth is absolutely impacted.
yeah, it's horrible.
Really horrible. And, again, I'll only share things with someone that I feel would be of a benefit. And sometimes I do share with my young people, I failed my GCSEs.
Mm.
I failed my GCSEs not because I'm not intelligent. It's nothing to do with that. Sitting at a desk for an hour and a half in silence for an
Oh,
ADHDer is torture.
it is.
It's torture. If you can't concentrate or focus on what you're doing, then you're not gonna do as well as perhaps you could do. So I just kind of like to give that hope. Your GCSEs it doesn't define your intelligence. It doesn't define what the rest of your life is going to look like, because I managed to do it without it. And
Yeah.
that's how I can use my experience as undiagnosed ADHD and now diagnosed to help others. And that's a place that I got to after my diagnosis. How can I use this to inform and help others? I've got the skills in terms of the therapy side. I need to use this. I need to be able to use this. And so that's why I changed my stance on TikTok, which overnight has blown up, which is great. And the messages I get from people is extremely overwhelming in how my videos have helped them. I struggle to see that sometimes. And that was the aim, and that was the goal, and that still is the aim, and still is the goal moving forward. And that helps me come to terms more so and accept my diagnosis.
Yeah. And I'm just going to pick up on what you were just saying about young people, because I think that is so important. Because I also I left school with one GCSE, and it took me a long time to be able to sit down and to study and I went on to become a teacher and a head teacher. And when you sort of have a bit of that imposter
Paid
syndrome.
someone.
Pardon?
Paid someone.
No, I did not. I worked hard. No, because when I do set my mind to something, like you were saying about intelligence, I'm bright. But it just, in my teenage years and even early 20s, that wasn't the time for me. It wasn't. And it was just something when I got some focus and when I decided, right, I would literally just wake up one day and just think, oh, I'm just going to do that. And then I would do it. And it is so hard for teenagers because all the pressure is on their exams. It's almost like they failed. If you don't get this, then
Yep.
your life is, and that's not true, because you've got a whole life to do. A whole life, I need to use my hands, to do whatever you want to do in that time. It doesn't, you have to do when you're ready,
Yep.
and when it's
Absolutely.
right for you.
Absolutely.
And with ADHD, you just have to go with it a bit, don't you? And if as a teenager, that just wasn't the time for me, definitely.
Yep.
I'd
Yeah.
be interested to see some. Oh no, I suppose I spoke to someone. Has it? I think for one, that's that flick that's actually got her GCSEs, didn't she? When she
Yeah,
went through it. But it's a similar story to me as well. Same thing. Like school was shit, didn't know what I was going to do, and ended up being a registered manager of like 7 care homes, like managing. Like how the hell I done that? I don't understand
but
from
who did
school.
you pay?
Yeah, well, a lot of people.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, but being black has its advantages. Not gonna lie, especially in care. Um,
Yeah.
but
We'll,
but
we'll
no, but
leave
yeah,
that
but it's
there.
that. Do you reckon where I was going with that anyway was that must be, I reckon that's quite as you said, I reckon that's quite a common thing. I reckon maybe people with ADHD do thrive in their 30s when it's because again I'm just getting into my 30s now, and it's changed as in like as soon as your body starts to slow down a bit, you can kind of manage and then sit down and concentrate again a bit. Like, see, I think school's just chaotic. Like, how again are you meant to sit in the classroom with all of that going on and get anything
Yeah,
learned at all? You can't.
No,
yeah.
it's
It's not. Go on. Sorry.
no, it's just not set up. It's not set up for people who are neurodiverse, whether it's autism, whether it's ADHD, and
Yeah,
then unfortunately, teachers don't really have the training. They might have a little bit of training or a little bit of knowledge, but it's not enough. And that's not. It's not their fault, but it's not enough because I work with that every day, and it's not. It doesn't help. There need to be changes. I don't know what the changes and how they would do it, but it does
We
need
need to
to
go
change.
into the schools. That's a lot. People like us need to go into schools and give
No,
talks. That's what needs to
that is
change,
true. That is
or
true.
be allowed to give training to the teachers.
Yeah,
yeah,
but also, like Jodie said, I think it's so important for children that are neurodivergent not to feel alone and not to feel that they're stupid and all the things that they're told on a daily basis. Sit down, be quiet, sit still, do this, do that. All very negative. And as Jodie said, your self-esteem is so severely impacted that that's probably why we don't get our shit together in our 20s, because we're still reveling from all the negativity that school has sort of
And
put.
getting a diagnosis now necessarily doesn't help either, because autism gets you into gets you a special needs school. ADHD will get you into a naughty school.
Yeah, I
mm,
know.
There's no ADHD schools out there or schools that you go to if you get an ADHD diagnosis. The only thing that will happen from that diagnosis, you get put in a secure school. So that's pretty terrible still.
It is. Yeah,
yeah.
because that's not right, is it?
No,
No.
It's
I
not.
find that some primary schools are able to put more reasonable adjustments in place. Certainly, the school that my son's in, he's doing really well, and I'm so grateful. I do have concerns when he goes to secondary school. The one nearest to me is an academy, and I'm not going to lie, it's like a regimental army
Mm.
in there. They give detentions all over the place. If you forget a pen or, silly little things that actually for an ADHD is a very common thing to do, is to forget your PE kit and forget your pen and things like that. So I am concerned because, again, if the child's constantly being told you've done this wrong, when cognitively
Mm.
it's not their fault. We can put things in place, reminders and this, as I do for myself, but it doesn't always work. There are still going to be times where it's not going to work, and to be punished for that, for something that you can't help, I just
That's horrible, actually.
massively, yeah,
God, we
that's
would have
it.
been beat back in the day, like beaten. I mean, I would have been beaten anyway, regardless for other reasons. But in school, ADHD, like, can you imagine how, like, your life in school when you like you had the belt and that, you're just being like smacked up all the time. That would have been awful.
Yeah, yeah, exactly
It's
that.
just horrible. But as well, so just hearing you say that, Jodie, just makes me think, and that's probably because I remember being quite rebellious at school, because there comes a point where you have to square up to people that are saying these things, and if that's the teachers, then unfortunately that's where the I don't want to say bad behaviour, but I guess it is, comes out, because you can only take so much and then you retaliate, because it's like, it's horrible. You can't have someone putting you down all the time and making you look like an idiot in the classroom. You're going to retaliate. So it's,
Absolutely.
yeah, it's not a sort of, you're explaining my childhood a little bit there. So,
Yeah. And anger, we often see angry outbursts
hmm
with ADHD. And, if we think about that, if a child is constantly being told off, and put down and criticised and judged for something they feel isn't their fault, that's going to massively build resentment and anger. And
yeah,
at some point, that's going to blow.
definitely.
And then when they blow, they're punished for that too.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
it's having that
yeah.
sensitivity towards when things aren't fair as well, because I know that
Mhm.
that's something that I have, and I know that's something my son has. And I really do get it from his point of view, and it's really hard to try and put it across so that it's so that you can see your part in it, if that makes sense. When you think a situation's unfair, but again, if you're having negative reinforcement constantly being told, then it's not going to feel fair to you, is it?
No. And then if
I,
we throw in injustice sensitivity, which
That's
often
it.
comes
Yeah.
as an ADHD trait, that's going to feel even harder. And also, defiant behaviour, when we're being told what to do, especially, if it's in a certain way, we immediately want to defend against that, which is another ADHD symptom. So all of those things in a schooling environment is going to be extremely triggering for someone with ADHD.
Yeah, 100%. What were
I
you
still
going
think I'm affected. I was about to say, yeah, I still think I'm affected now from it. Like, I could like still, it was awful.
to say?
I got so what happened to me is they gave me the diagnosis, which was unheard of, like in this school, clearly, because it was like a religious school, and they didn't know how to deal with it. So when I finally got it was a statement back then. I put my statement in. They used my statement to put me on part-time schooling. Didn't let me do any of my GCSEs. So
Wow.
basically, my whole knowledge of having a diagnosis of ADHD is I just got punished by getting chucked out year 11 because they'd done it cleverly because they couldn't expel me, but they used the statement to say that I wasn't, they couldn't provide whatever it was. They wouldn't be able to get away with it now, but yeah, they put me on
Can't meet your
part-time schooling.
needs. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then and all of that, I was in grammar stream, like as the whole as well. Like, so yeah, they mugged me off. But so I had nothing. I come out of there with none. I took like 3 exams, I think, and I was going to school like 1 lesson a day, if that, for the whole of year 11. I mean, I was a little shit as well. I'm not gonna lie, but it was no worse going into year 11. It was just because a statement came in and they realised coming into GCSEs that there wasn't that was a loophole they could get out of. And because of that, as I said, I've just every time the only reason I could become a registered manager is because someone said I couldn't do it. I didn't even know if I wanted to do it, and it's that I've still got all of that in it. Like, someone says you can't do it, I'm going to do it anyway. Like, it's all stems from school, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sounds
So
like it.
it just shows that, even if I had got an earlier diagnosis, actually, it might not have gone to my benefit anyway.
Mm.
Yeah, I think now. Do you reckon now it does? What do you reckon? Because obviously back then it wasn't, and even my time it didn't. Like, do you reckon now it holds weight, or do you reckon it again just causes more issues because the guy can't support it?
I think it's hard still because I think there are schools out there that charge a lot of money, tens of thousands for a child to go to that particular school. And coming from someone that's worked in schools where I worked with Nathan, as you know, where we had a great deal of support, ongoing training, um, which was it was ongoing. It wasn't just left. You would just had your development all the time, and I don't know that I see that in schools so much. Even ones that call themselves specialist provisions, they just seem to be able to accept or manage the more challenging behaviour that mainstream schools aren't able to accept or support. But I don't see that they're getting anything more from it. Does that make sense? It's just that they can have the more challenging behaviour and the outbursts and the more physically challenges, and the school are able to manage that. Which, yeah, I'm not sure that they get. I still don't think the training's there and the understanding of ADHD or autism. And the thing is, I think as professionals, you sort of think ADHD is one thing and autism is one thing, and it isn't. They're a spectrum, or they're a huge, there's a huge range of different symptoms.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's not a lot of understanding, I don't think, still.
Yeah. And
That's my personal opinion. Yeah.
yeah, definitely. And it's, there's so much emphasis in schools often, particularly secondary schools, in punishment, when actually someone with ADHD thrives more in reward. That massively helps dopamine, which we know dopamine is a massive part of ADHD. It helps with motivation, focus, and concentration. So actually, reward, you're going to get much more out of that child with reward, not
Hmm.
punishment.
100%.
Punishment doesn't really work, because if they're forgetting their pen, it's not because they've intentionally done that or been really careless. It's something that just hasn't entered their mind, so you punish them for that. It's not going to change the way their brain works.
Not at all. Exactly.
Be the same. So it really serves no purpose whatsoever to keep punishing. It just hits the self-esteem and self-worth. But an ADHD child, even an adult, reward will massively help with dopamine levels. But don't really see a lot of that. You see it more in primary schools with reward charts
Yeah,
and
you do.
reward marbles and things like that, and little certificates they get. I don't really see a lot of that in secondary school.
I don't think there is. I think, like you've said,
Well,
it's
wait,
detentions and
but would you want that in school? If you're going to year 7, 8, 9, 10, would you want to keep getting highlighted for doing good behaviour because you've got ADHD? I don't think I would like that. If you're in a mainstream school,
Right.
yeah, but the punishment doesn't work. And at the
the
moment,
punishment doesn't work either.
that's all there is, I think. And
I
you know what's even worse? I can also remember things like there would be a reward trip, and then
Yeah,
certain children would not be allowed to go on the trip because they had made mistakes usually because
I
they've got ADHD or ASD, and that it
I
was
got
seen as bad behaviour.
I got banned from a funeral, and I was devastated. I was old enough to understand that because they said they couldn't trust that I wasn't going to misbehave. It was someone the year above, but it was pretty part of the schools. Their granddad had died. He was part of and we was like a Catholic school and primary school, so we went to this before I got the diagnosis. And I was the only one. I was in the choir, and they didn't let me sing in the choir because they said I was going to misbehave. I was devastated. I couldn't believe they didn't trust me to do that. But obviously, I don't think I would have. But maybe I mean, but it was awful to hear.
absolutely,
No, it's horrible. It is horrible.
absolutely.
And
That's
again, you hold on to that, so it affects you
Yeah.
going into your adult life. That
Do you see a lot of is lately? Have you seen, or as there over the years, has there been an increase of people with ADHD that come to you a lot?
massive, massive. And one thing that concerns me is, so I used to be a counselling tutor. So for 4 years, I used to teach the counselling diploma. I did the level 2 and 3. So I taught it for 4 years. I've got a teaching qualification. And I'm also a clinical supervisor, and I will see qualified counsellors, but I also see a lot of students that are in placement. So what concerns me is when you are training to be a therapist, neurodiversity isn't even touched on.
not at all.
It's not
What?
even touched on. No, no. So, I did my training 11 years ago. So, there wasn't there was neurodiversities, but we didn't see, a lot of it. But now there's huge amounts, huge undiagnosed and diagnosed coming through. Older people now getting diagnosis, young people now getting their diagnosis is being picked up much quicker. And yet in counselling training doesn't even talk about it.
No.
So I did put I put a program together, which was a CPD for therapists, because there's a massive gap. And I've got my students coming to me saying, they've had enough training to work with clients, obviously, but they're like, oh, I've got a client that's ADHD, and, I'm struggling with this, I'm struggling with that, and I'm having to guide them through it. So I put a program together to a CPD workshop online to teach therapists how to work with ADHD, how to work with ASD, how to adapt your way of working to meet the needs of the client.
Yeah. Have you got a link for that? Because that would be really because you know that I'm in my final year of counselling training, and
Yeah.
I can 100% agree with what you're saying, because I've got colleagues who are now doing placements in colleges, and it seems that predominantly they're seeing young people with ASD, with ADHD, and they
Yeah.
don't know how to, so I've sort of recommended a book that I'd read, even all the skills that you use in counselling. So there's a lot of silence used, isn't there? And it's like, if you use that with someone with ADHD, we're not contemplating and reflecting. We're thinking about what's going on out the window or what's going. So it's just having that understanding that it is different.
Yeah. I do it live.
Okay.
I haven't got any planned at the moment, but we'll see. So I am looking at doing a recorded version.
Brilliant. You should.
At some point, because there is a massive gap. I mean, there's therapists they have to go and get additional training themselves around neurodiversity,
Crazy.
it is crazy, because there's so much of it coming through my students now. I mean, my students never really came across neurodiverse clients, and every student that I have will have at least a few
Yeah.
out of their 100 hours placement.
Yeah.
And if they haven't got a supervisor that has, that knowledge, then the supervisor, or if the supervisor hasn't had any additional training, then, everyone's in the dark there. And
Yeah.
it's something there has to change, because over the last 3 to 4 years, it has escalated through the roof. We know that people with neurodiversities tend to struggle more so with mental health. So it makes sense that they're going to come through more often than neurotypicals. And yet therapist is not part of the training.
No.
So who's trained for ADHD then? It's no one. So there's no specific person you go out to for someone for ADHD. So like you've got autism and or ASD. So like like personality disorders, you go speak to there's people trained in that, isn't it? You go to groups, you go to that. Is there literally like nothing? So I thought therapists would have been trained in it, like to that. So there's nothing
That
unless
there'll
you go
be
to like a specialist or
You
private.
could do additional training, yeah.
So that's something like you would have to pay for, or that you would have a specific interest in. So when you are a BACP registered therapist, you are obligated to do 30 hours a year of CPD training, extra training, and you can choose whatever you want to. So it might be in self-harm, it might be in personality disorders, you choose. So, when my son was diagnosed, I automatically had a huge interest in it. So I've been very much into ADHD for the last 4.5 years. And then I was seeing more people coming through. So, I felt that I needed to read and research and do as much as I can. And I've been doing that for 4.5 years, then got my own diagnosis, so I have that training because I chose to.
But the thing is, I think the point that you're making as well, and what I'm picking from this, is it should be part of your training, because
That's what I was
when
trying to
I
say.
go,
Yeah.
when I have to have personal therapy as part of my training. So you have to, I go once a week. I only had my diagnosis this year, so I didn't go in there saying I have ADHD. And in a way, why should you have to? You should be able to go and get support, and the person, you'd like to think that the counsellor has got the skills to be able to support you. And it's, you're going to be like we were saying earlier, not everyone is going to have a diagnosis, but that doesn't mean they haven't got ASD or ADHD. So really, when you're going to a professional, you think you're going to get, like you just said, Nate, you just presume that they're going to have the skills to support you. And it's a bit sad that you almost have to sort of like shout it out, to be able to get that, or even for the therapist to think that they can't help you. If you say, "Oh, I'm ADHD," and they're like, "Oh, well, you don't know, do you?"
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It should be part of the the training 100%, because it is very common now.
absolutely.
I mean, they do touch on some personality disorders, where they did in my training, but again, not loads. But neurodiversity wasn't even touched on, and I think, you know, that has to change.
Yeah.
That has to change.
Well,
And
they don't. So schools don't get training in ADHD. Therapists don't get training in ADHD. The police, the ambulance and stuff like don't get trained in ADHD. Like where? So this is what I'm saying. That there's an absence of training anywhere.
Everywhere there
Why
is.
is it not put? Yeah. So you just don't. And also, parents are not given any information on ADHD.
no.
You
So
get a
there's just no
leaflet.
training about.
You get a leaflet, don't you? If you get
Yeah,
something, you get
I
a
was
leaflet.
I was given a leaflet when my son was diagnosed,
Yeah.
and obviously being ADHD, I hyper focused it. Not that I knew at the time, but you know, my mission was to, you know, I need to understand this so I can understand him, and that's what I did. It just so happens that at that time, you know, 4 years ago, I was seeing more and more neurodiverse clients, and I was like, oh, okay, like there's something in this, and I did my own research, and you know, I didn't do I don't know, like formal training, if you like. I did it all myself.
Yeah.
And then that's when I decided, you know what, I need to put, you know, a CPD together for therapists, because, you know, there's a massive gap. There is some training out there if you look for it, but I don't feel that therapists should have to
No.
go and pay to learn about this
No.
stuff when it's so common. You know, we learn about like self-harm and, you know, suicidal thoughts and things like that. Why are we not learning about neurodiversities?
But again, that's setting us apart, isn't it? It's going right back to the school thing. It's like saying that it's not part of, it's part of normal society, and it needs to be seen like that. And the training needs to be there for, it needs to be part of all of the training, whether it's for doctors, nurses, therapists, teachers, you know, not just an hour or watching a quick video or reading a leaflet. It should form part of it. Maybe that's our quest.
Yeah, I mean, there's, you know, if you still now, when I hear people talking about ADHD, they think they know about ADHD, and it's so like dated with what they know. It's like,
Mm.
no, you know, people, there's still people that are kind of believing that it's just little boys being really, really naughty.
Yeah.
Like, really?
The
Like,
whole of Africa.
But it
All
is,
of
it's
it.
dated. You're
Yeah.
right, it's dated.
so dated,
It
so
is.
dated. And I think, like with my videos that I put on TikTok, I you know, I do some funny ones. I do, you know, that's part of my personality. But you know, some of the things that I put up, and I'm seeing comments like, "Oh my god, I didn't realize that was an ADHD thing. Oh my god, I didn't realize that, you know,
Yeah.
that's part of ADHD." And I'm like,
Yeah, yeah.
really, really?
How? Some do you get it as well? Like some of the conversations you have with people, you literally give them the bare basics of ADHD, and it's like changing their life. Like some of the conversations I've had, and it's just been bare. Oh, why don't you try like this? Or same with ASD, like, oh yeah, time's a big thing, and they're like, really? I didn't know that. I'm like, well, really? Like, how? Where did? But again, if you've not got it told you, how would you know it?
Exactly that. And I think because, you know, we are invested in neurodiversities, and you know, we've had to do our own learning about it. But if you're someone that has not been touched by neurodiversities or have any kids with neurodiversities, or, you know, why would you? Why would they? Why would they go and learn about it? It's not relevant to them, is it?
No,
No, and what I find as well, with a lot of the ones when it's an ASD diagnosis and it's coming from the parents, how the hell are you going to get someone with autism to already to describe to their kid autism or even understand autism, even doing their own research? It's not. It's just so they just kind of don't see it. Like I speak to a lot of parents that they talk about their kids. They got this, they got that, and you can see the parent has got every single trait that they're saying about as well, but doesn't see it, even the connection. And you're yeah, and it's just and then like let alone you're going to get the information to be able to relay what that actually means.
Yeah. Yeah. I've seen so many young people come to me, and, you know, I'll work with them, and, you know, we have to do kind of reviews like every 6 session, and the parent comes in, and we have a catch up, and I look at them and I just think, God, you're autistic, or,
Mm.
you know,
yeah,
you're ADHD, and it's, you know, it's so sad, really. It's so sad. even though there's more awareness, there isn't enough.
Yeah, definitely.
Nowhere near enough. And I think, you know, when we're posting our videos, Nate, and people are like, oh my God, it's like, it's just basic knowledge to us.
Yeah.
But to them,
It's not hard, is it? Like, that's what I mean. It's so, the gap is massive. It's just basic, like, textbook stuff. You could read it out of a book and give it to someone, like.
Yep.
Yeah, but that's what it's just sad, isn't it? It's just people having access, I guess, to things. And
Yeah, this is the whole center. This is the whole reason I started this, isn't it? To someone
yeah,
everyone has access to drop into
it
it.
is. It's just so that
Do you think we should do an episode on it? I reckon we should do it. I reckon us three should do a pinpointed episode on awareness of it. I reckon.
Yeah.
I think that would be good.
I reckon we should do it face to face.
I like the thought of going into schools. I'm not going to lie. I think
I thought about that myself. In fact,
Yeah.
I thought about going into my son's school, primary school, and giving him free training.
Yeah, because I've got some good contacts as well, and can probably. But
Yeah,
I
because
think
no
it's
one's
about
letting me walk into a school.
sharing information so that people can access, and also for children and young people as well, so that they're not feeling. I hate the thought of kids feeling like they're the only one, or they're isolated, or they're being, pelted with all of these negative comments constantly, and just feeling, isolated. I hate it. And parents.
How do we do it?
I don't know.
How good would it be though if, like, this is just an ADHD fleeting thought, like if we went into a school and they got all the kids together that have got ADHD and autism and put them in a room with us, and we're all like,
That's what I mean. How do we make that happen?
like,
We can make that happen. Honestly, we could. Trust me.
Well,
I
you
think
two could, because you've got qualifications. I'll sit behind and surprise them when we get there. Surprise, they've got a black man.
I think the kids would really relate to you though, Nate.
They'd love it. Yeah, they would. That's what I mean. But on paper, I couldn't go to the school. The teachers wouldn't. The teachers were like, no way am I going to let this kid say. Because I wouldn't like to go there on my own, because in case I said something too anti-school or stupid. So I would only go with like one
that's
of
the
you
only
two
reason
there.
he's got me involved, Jodie, in all of this, is just so that I can tell him when he says something that's not appropriate.
Oh,
But I don't know how that's going to work. Listen, on that note, I'm going to wrap this up, if that's okay. I think we definitely. Can
we do a live episode? I can use the actual camera and we could do it properly. It look amazing, and then we can do it longer and brainstorm ideas of how we're getting infiltrate schools without sounding like a paedophile.
Jodie's got loads of stuff to share as well, so I think we can work
100%.
a lot. I hope.
Yeah, no problem at all. I think it's so important, and we could definitely do a live. I think
Live would be amazing. Yeah,
so many questions and it's crazy, isn't it?
It's good.
But live between our two audiences would be crazy, I reckon.
Yeah, you could have first as well.
They're not too serious as well. That's what I like, because you're not going to you'll get the random ones that just see the live, but because we've got the fan base there anyway, that they know the jokes and humour anyway, so you don't really have to adapt on the live.
But yeah, we've been quite serious today though, haven't we?
It's good though. It's good.
It's good.
It is
but
good.
I think there's issues that that really need to kind of highlight. I think I can't believe you've got training for it. I'm the fool that would just assume that you just get trained in everything.
No.
And then
shocking, isn't it?
We just wing it.
And this is what I mean. Like if someone's got ADHD, what's going to be better for them? A therapist that has ADHD but has also hyper focused it for the last 4.5 years, learn as much as I possibly can and teach other therapists in how to adapt their work, or someone that has no idea.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
it's a no-brainer.
Of course it is.
Right.
What?
Oh.
Well, wait, you can't leave yet. Let me press stop record, because it needs to carry on recording for like 5 seconds before you leave. One sec. We'll still let it stay on.